happens, and they've really been able to keep a secret. And so either they do, I'm sure mind control has something to do with it, but I haven't got as much information. Most my new information, or the information that I like, it comes from Sleeper, and he doesn't post very often anymore. And so I just try and refine the stuff that I am privy to. The only really serious discussions I get into is over 9/11. People think that an airplane actually crashed into the World Trade Center, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And there are people that really, really do believe that an airplane crashed into the World Trade Center, not leaving any trace of, of a tail or anything that would automatically be flung off and against the wall, against the building, and then crashing down on the ground, and then that fake engine they put over there on Murray Street. I mean, there's just no truth to anything. And of course, Shanksville is ridiculous. There's no way for an airplane to bury itself in the ground, and the Pentagon is ridiculous too. I mean, there's nothing that crashed there. No drone, no A-3, no fighter jet, no anything, simply because April Gallup was sitting 40 feet from that hole, and it was just an explosion. She didn't smell any fuel or kerosene or gasoline or JP7 or anything else.
Right, and what we're talking about is a hologram, right?
Pardon?
You're talking about a hologram. In other words,
no.
The image of the planes, the image that was on the television that people were seeing, wasn't it a hologram?
Well, you're talking about the World Trade Center or the Pentagon?
I'm talking about the World Trade Center.
That was a hologram.
Okay.
That's what people were seeing. And,
okay, and
I can't get anybody to listen to that. There are people that are relatively smart, but I had a friend come and visit about a year ago from New York, and this friend was in the casting business and wanted my wife. My wife is also CSA, Casting Society of America, and she was out there. They were both working on a project, and we started talking about holographs. And she said, well, let me tell you something that happened to me. She said, I was invited along with a number of Hollywood bigwigs, and she said, I won't tell you the names, but you would recognize them instantly. And we were invited to this preview studio, which was a small theater type thing, and we all sat down, and there was probably maybe 30 people there, and the talk was the future of television. And so she says it's a brightly lit stage, and there was a podium, and a guy comes from behind the curtain, obviously elderly, white hair, glasses, and a Eastern European accent, and he started to tell the development of television, and how they originally came up with the cathode ray tube, and how it advanced to this, and how they introduced color. And she said it was pretty much frankly a boring lecture, but during his lecture he stepped off the podium, down the stairs, and walked down the aisle between the rows of seats there, and took off his glasses and polished them, and then walked back down to the stage, walked up to the podium, and then put his glasses back on, and then wrapped up his speech and said, "Thank you very much," and then he went out just like a light bulb. And what that was showing these people is the future of television will be a hologram, where you don't have a screen, you'll just have a button, a little programming unit like we do now, but you can put it anywhere in the room, you can put it on a table, you can put it on the floor, you can make any size you want, you can walk around it 360 degrees, you can do anything you want, but it's just a hologram. It looks absolutely solid, just as if it were there. And this is 12 years ago we had this stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and I do remember that story that you told us, and I get a kick out of that. And I think it's absolutely correct. What about the ring makers of Saturn? Because you're the one who talked about Norman Berggren's work on the ring makers of Saturn, and I just recently got in touch with him, and I'm hoping at some point to do an interview in the future. But I was told recently that Saturn is not what it appears, that apparently it's a portal into other dimensions. Have you heard that?
First of all, Norm Berggren's wife passed away, and he's really taking it hard, and I don't know if he'll do any interviews, but it's a planet just like Earth, but Sleeper says if you got to look at it from a closer planet like Titan or something like that, he said you wouldn't be able to talk for a day because you would be so amazed at the structures on it and its beauty. And no, it's not a portal. It's a place where people live, but it's just tremendously just awesome in beauty, and that we would just be totally amazed.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about the ring makers of Saturn? What is the premise? What is the information that Norman was trying to get across to people? Do you know?
Yeah, he had gotten a hold of Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 unairbrushed rolls of film, and he has a little studio in his house, which I've been up to several times. And interesting enough, Norm is one of those that saw a hologram. He was driving down, he lives in Los Altos Hills, and he was driving down the Bayshore Freeway, and he said, and he was with a friend, and he worked at Lockheed at the time, and he's driving down to Sunnyvale, and this great big airplane, he said, looked like a 747, flew over his car about 200 feet. And they watched it for about 20 seconds. And so when I went to him a few years ago and told him that I thought the World Trade Center was a hologram, he says, well, I have no doubt, and I'll tell you a story. And he told me the story about seeing this thing. So the premise of Ringmakers of Saturn is that he got a hold of these photos and he started enlarging the rings and saw 3 vehicles.
Hello?
There. Yep, I'm here.
Okay, you were talking about what the ring makers of Saturn, what Norman's research shows.
So Norman gets a hold of the photos, and he has this little lab in his house, and he started enlarging the photos, and he saw these 3 ships, and he could see the propulsion end of it, and he could see all kinds of detail. So he kept enlarging them, and decided he had to write a book about them. Now, his theory is that these ships are making the rings, and of course, my theory is that they're mining the rings. But that's just an opinion. But Norm knows far more about it than I do. But anyway, it's a great book because it shows the size. The size of the one ship is 30,000 miles long and 2,400 miles in diameter. And, we're talking about a fairly large spaceship.
Incredible.
30,000 miles long. But the book is written very well. And, at the beginning he says, now if you want to understand this book, don't skip any page. Don't skip around. Don't try and start in the middle, or you're not going to understand what I'm trying to tell you. And so if you start that and read every page, then you begin to understand that what he figured out and what he found is very, very interesting.
Okay. We're trying to get John back now. We've been interrupted several times. Apparently they don't want to. Hi, John. It's Carrie.
Hi.
Well, apparently they don't want us talking about the ring makers of Saturn, which is really interesting.
Well, anyway, it's a good book, and I